friends, this is Miss Regina coming to you from the Ashland Public Library in Ashland, Ohio. Today we're having a special edition of Crafternoons. We're celebrating National Gummy Worm Day, July 15th. Our special edition is going to be a science experiment, and we're going to use the scientific method to discover some things about gummy worms. We're taking our information from the book 101 Coolest Simple Science Experiments. It is an awesome book, and you'll be able to get it here at the library. So hopefully you'll take up and try to do some of those experiments. First of all, when we talk about the scientific method, we have to have a problem. There's a problem that they have. So I have a little sheet, and you're able to download this sheet also. The problem is it easier for your body to absorb plain or salted water? We have some observations, like, most of our Earth is made up of salted water. All of the oceans are salt water. So we have a lot of water, but we can't drink it. We only drink the plain fresh water. So, I'm wondering if one is better than the other. Might be. Now, after we have our problem and we do some observations, we do what's called a hypothesis. This is a guess, but it's based upon some information that we already have. And we already know that most of the Earth has salt water in it, but we don't drink salt water. So I think when we make this guess, and this is what you do next. Our next step is to make the guess. I think we're going to have to come up with a guess about that. I'm going to choose to put, I think, the gummy worms Let's see. The gummy worms will do what? The gummy worms in plain water. Since we drink the plain water, I think maybe the gummy worms in the plain water will absorb the water easier, will absorb the plain water easier, not the salt water. The gummy worms in plain water will absorb the water easier. Now, we can't check our own bodies because we're trying to figure out if it's easier for you to absorb in your body the plain water or salt water. I think it would be easier for us to use the plain water. So we're going to pretend that the gummy worms are our bodies. In plain water. Okay. So our materials that we need are a ruler, 6 gummy worms. So I went to the store and I have gummy worms. And I will count out 6 of them. And a pencil, paper, and let's see, I think I'll put the gummy worms right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. We also need 2 bowls. One bowl is for salted and one bowl is for plain. And I'm going to mark them right here. I'm going to put the word salt is right in front of this bowl. And I'm going to put the word plain right in front of this bowl. And you could even write it on here. Maybe I should do that too. Salt. I'm going to put salt in this one along with the water. And this one will be plain water. All water. You also need 2/3 of a cup of water. That's 160 milliliters. And you can see here, it measures right to the 2/3 mark. 2/3. And a 1/4 teaspoon salt. Here's my salt. And here's my measuring spoons. So I'm going to measure out 1/4 teaspoon. It says, when it's time, I'll measure out 1/4 teaspoon. It says the first thing we need to do is record the length of the gummy worms. So let's do that first. Now, the gummy worms are made in a factory, and most of them are pretty much the same length, unless you pull them. So don't pull them. We're just going to measure from 0. And I like to measure in centimeters because it's a little bit more accurate. You can get pretty accurate with. This one measures 95 centimeters. And this one measures, let me see what that is. 95 centimeters. And this one measures, you'll never guess, 95 centimeters. I bet they all measure the same because they're made in the factory and they're made to be the same length. This one measures 95 centimeters. This one measures 95 centimeters. And this one measures, let me get it right at the 0, 95 centimeters. So we have 6 95 centimeter gummy worms. So I will put 95 centimeters right here. It says pour 1/3 of a cup of water into the bowl and add 1/4 teaspoon salt. So this is going to be our salted bowl. I'm going to pour and pour 1/3, and this will be our plate, of a cup. Now, you do this at eye level. You want to make sure that you're not going to put in too much or too little. So, a little bit more. 1/3 of a cup. And then the other third goes in the plain. And to that, we'll add the 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt of salt to the water. There we go. Mix that up. And I like to label my bowls before I have the water in them. So that's why Miss Regina wrote salt on one and plain on the other. Put 3 gummy worms in each bowl. So I think we'll put 1, 2, 3. 3 gummy worms in each bowl. Now I'm going to put the gummy worms aside and let them sit for a couple of hours to see. It does take several hours. So you can do this, set your timer for a couple of hours, or ask Mom or Dad to just tell you when 2 hours are finished, and then we're going to come back. So I'm going to stop right now, and then we'll come back and see what's happened. Hi friends, we're back. 2 hours. I've had 3 of them in salt water and 3 of them in plain water. Here's what the size was when we first started. So now we're going to make our observations. And if you can see, I think I'll take one out. Here's one in the plane. Ooh, it's quite different from the one that we started with. And here's one in the salt water. And it's a little bit different. Boy, they're slippery. They are like worms now. What do you think? What do you think? Well, I think if we measure them, and I'm going to measure, if we measure the one in the salt water, we're going to see that it is just slightly larger. Let me see if you can see that one. It's slightly larger than the other one. So it's probably, let's see, it's almost one, it's about 98 centimeters. So I'm going to mark that one. The one I'm going to go to my conclusions page now. So my question was here, and now I'm going to go to my conclusions page. The salt water, I'm going to put an S, and it was 98 centimeters after 2 hours. Okay, I'm going to put that back in the salt water so I don't get them confused. And then the one that was in the fresh water. Okay, let me get it right at 0. It is 102 centimeters. Now that's not a huge, I'm going to put a P by that one. That's not a huge difference, but it is a difference. And I wonder sometimes, how that works. But they do look a little bit larger. Here's another one that was in the plane, and it looks larger. Here's another one that was in the salt water, and it's not as large as the plain one. So I think our conclusion has to be, was my hypothesis correct? So I have to circle one of these. Was my hypothesis, it seemed that it was easier for gummy worms to absorb plain water, so it might be easier for our bodies to absorb plain water. So my hypothesis was correct when I said, I think the gummy worms in plain water will absorb the water easier. So maybe our bodies will absorb plain water easier. That is our conclusion. Now, if you'd like to take a picture with your ruler of the plane, and I want to mark it. This one was these are both these plain ones. And then I'll put a saltwater one here so that we can kind of look and see too. It's not quite as long. Let me itch it up there. And this is the salt one. If you'd want to take a picture or draw a picture of what this looks like and send it right here to our Facebook page at Ashland Public Library, Ohio, we'd love to see all of your results. Happy Gummy Worm Day. Happy National Gummy Worm Day. And I hope that you have some gummy worms left over to try them. I think I might. Bye. See you again.